Welcome to the Engineering Emotions and Energy Podcast. I am your host, Justin Wink. Welcome to the show. Today, I kind of got like a potpourri of things I want to go over. It's, kind of feels like it's been a while, let's like rekindle the love and just, catch up, see how things have been here. So, we're going to talk about how, the enrollment for my Engineer Your Career program closed. I'm going to talk about how that went, how, like for too long, I probably was too shy about, owning my past accomplishments and being shy about having a Ph.D. And then, we'll get into what I've learned is what I really like to talk about and focus on is sort of meditation, mindfulness, breath work. But before we get all of that, I just want to talk about how, went from quarantining for the corona to now I'm in California here, Northern California, quarantining due to fire nados and poor air quality and general overall hellscape that is now the outdoors. So really just been a fun, amazing adventure of 2020. I love all the fuck 2020 memes and, had enough of this. And it really reminded me, that it was actually about June 2001. I feel like George Carlin has, saw all this coming well before, any of us, because he had a bit. I went to see him live, and whenever he would do live performances, he was usually preparing for his HBO specials. So I can't remember what year George Carlin passed away, but he's basically doing for, I don't know, it's probably like almost 2 decades doing a HBO special every year, just, like clockwork, that would just be, new material with new views on the world, utilizing language to highlight sort of our human condition and just kind of point out the ridiculousness of it all. And it was summer of 2001, went down to San Diego, got to go with my dad, and, he was doing, some greatest hits material, and then he paused and said, "Hey, this next bit, I'm still working on it. The way I work on stuff is I write it out, and I effectively have to read it straight from my notes. But, after a couple weeks, I basically have it memorized, and this becomes part of my special." And the bit was called, "I Kind of Like It When a Lot of People Die." And it really just went through all these, horrendous, awful things. Looking back, it's like, oh, he kind of described how 2020 would go. But at the time, it was like, oh my gosh, all this stuff is awful, from, plagues to, all sorts of political instability and fires and whatnot. And now it's just, I recently saw an article that said there is an asteroid on the way that could possibly have impact in right around November 3rd, around election time. It's a 0.5% chance, 6.5 foot diameter asteroid, meteor, whatever it is. So highly unlikely it'll do anything, but it was just kind of one of those like, yep, that's probably about the only thing that's been missing is, something coming from outer space, a actual Armageddon deep impact type moment. But what was interesting was that bit, September 11th happened, so he wasn't able to do that bit called "I Kind of Like It When a Lot of People Die," because, even though he likes to fuck with people, he kind of still knew what was a little bit out of the bounds of taste. Eventually, that bit did come back in one form, several years later. I did want to kind of share a really fun bit that I don't know, because there's just sort of this craziness with the boomers. I know there's the OK Boomer, and George Carlin had a great bit on baby boomers a long time ago, and there's just a lot of, because who's in charge? We look at who's running the Senate. The 2 presidential candidates are well into their 70s. The average age of the House is very old. The average age of the Senate is even older. So it really is. It's being run by the baby boomers. I'm pretty sure. And he had this great bit, and I'm just gonna do my rendition of George Carlin's bit on baby boomers. So, I'm getting tired of hearing about boomers, whiny, narcissistic, self-indulgent people with a simple philosophy. Give me it. It's mine. Give me that. It's mine. These people were given everything. Everything was handed to them, and they took it all. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, and they stayed loaded and fucked up for 20 years and had a free ride. But now they're staring down the barrel of death, and they don't like it. So they've turned self-righteous. They want to make things harder on younger people. They tell them, abstain from sex. Say no to drugs. As for all the rock and roll, they've sold that for television commercials a long time ago so they could buy pasta machines and Stairmasters and soybean futures. You know something? These are cold, bloodless people. They went from do your own thing to just say no. They went from love is all you need to whoever winds up with the most toys wins. And they went from cocaine to Rogaine. So, I don't know. I really enjoyed that. And, yeah, my wife recently got me some Rogaine. She's like, you got a little spot at the bottom top of your, well, it's not the bottom, at the crown of my head. She's like, here's a little bit of scalp showing through too much. So let's get you the Rogaine, make sure that doesn't. So, we'll try that out, see how it works. Clinically proven to help regrow hair, right? So that's the fun comedy bit for the for the episode. So my Engineer Your Career program, enrollment closed this past week on Wednesday. This is my first time doing like a really big launch for a program. And man, did I learn so much coming up with, the web presence, writing the copy. I hired someone to help me editing my podcast. I hired someone to help get my Podia sales page up. I hired someone else, Rachel, who was on the show a few weeks ago, had her do some copy editing, which was super helpful. There's just something about, someone else kind of looking at it and giving some feedback that then I look at it and go like, holy shit, I don't think I'm getting my point across at all. And so just so much learning, and got to do really put myself out there doing videos that I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was ridiculous, but who cares? That I think the thing that I've realized is that I was kind of always afraid like, I'll get made fun of or someone will think I'm silly, but I have yet to find someone actually go like, hey, that video was dumb or that was stupid. It's more just the complete lack of any feedback is for me maybe the most challenging. That like, oh, I'm talking to no one. I'm all alone here. That feeling of abandonment. So there's a little bit where that's actually feels almost worse than someone because it's like if someone says that sucks, at least they saw you, they noticed you. But when it's just crickets, it's like, oh man, do I even exist? Am I even really here? So that's been kind of the interesting thing is like, okay, how do you even get attention? How do you even get some feedback? Because a lot of stuff on, well, to find a good niche to work on, go ask your audience, like, hey, what's a problem you guys have? And then you just go and solve their problem, and there you go. Now you got a problem. Which, many of you probably have hundreds, thousands of friends, followers, whatever. How many are actually truly engaged and watching? Because there's so much noise out there nowadays. So I also got to play around with advertising, and it really is, there's the organic way and then there's the fast way, which is advertising to get your message in front of a lot more people with a lot more possibilities. But it's really a numbers game, which coming from my engineering background, it like flips everything on its end, where in electrical engineering, we're usually trying to get like 99.99% success rates on stuff. Like, if it's less than 99.9, like, oh, it's a complete piece of shit, total failure. Whereas in the realm of business, in the realm of communications, the realm of marketing, it's almost completely flipped. Like people go like, oh, you're able to get a 5% hit rate. people responding to your message, like, oh my gosh, you're doing something right. That is so amazing. So a lot of it just is kind of like a mindset shift. And so I was looking to have 20 people join my program. Ended up, I've got 2 fantastic clients that have signed up with me. And it's like, part of me was like, oh man, how did I not get 20 people? Like, oh, I suck. Then the other part of me was like, well, what would that have really meant if you had 20 people? And I think part of me was like, well, I'd really like to, give some really good high quality attention and be able to get into things that maybe go beyond just, engineering your career. It's like because I was talking to my wife and she was like, when you say like, oh, I'm gonna, help people get their dream job, it seems like you're kind of like pussyfooting around. Like you really like, meditation and mindfulness. It's like you're really good at that stuff, but is that really what you want to be doing? And I'm like, yeah, you're like, I know this stuff and I know I'm going to knock it out of the park and, give a great experience. Yet I really do love getting into meditation, mindfulness, breath work, that kind of stuff. And so it's like, I'm definitely going to be incorporating that because, I just love it. And that's probably what I'm going to do a lot more on this podcast is, sharing things to do with that. And then career stuff, like to me, I found there really is no separation from career, from relationships, personal, like we're all people doing people-y things. So there's a little bit of, your language changes, but a lot of the concepts and the ways of being, the ways of doing, they end up being timeless. Well, not timeless, but there's a lot of threads that are continuous and helpful. But I realized that ultimately I got out of the experience what I needed to get. And I'm super excited to help my 2 clients, like just, they're literally getting like the deal of the century. Cause I'm just gonna like spoil them with, some great teachings and some great experiences, and they're gonna do some great things in the world. So I'm super excited. But I also realized that a part of this was, me getting to just own who I've been and who I am, so that I can use that to start moving towards, where I want to grow into, what types of things I want to be reading, what types of experiences I want to be having, what types of content I want to be teaching, as I move forward and sort of grow myself and my ability to teach and offer. Because I realized that for so long I was, shy about, what I've done, what I've accomplished. Like I got my Ph.D. in electrical engineering and started work, and like I almost never told anyone that I had a Ph.D., that I was a doc. It's like, oh, I guess if you got my resume, you'd see it, but I never really mentioned it. And looking back, part of that was when I first started working, there was this guy that was like a lab manager, and he'd call everybody doctor. He's like, well, somebody got a doctorate in our group, so now we all get to be doctors. So, you're doctor, this guy's doctor, I'm a doctor, you're a doctor. And I was like, well, I fucking actually got a PhD. I spent 6 years after college. Like I did a bunch of research, I gave talks, I wrote papers, I busted my fucking ass. And you're just like, oh, everybody's got this title. And so unfortunately I took to heart the message of like, oh, this doesn't really matter. This is actually doesn't make me special. It almost makes me blend in. So I'll just, not really utilize that. I'll just hide that. Which is kind of lame, kind of sad. Like I would always tell myself and others, it's like, well, does it serve me? And it's like looking back, it really didn't serve me hiding that. I was really just hiding out. It's kind of an extension of how I was in high school. Cause I had like really awful social anxiety in high school. Like I found a group of friends and we literally would go hang out like by these handball courts that were away from everybody. And so it was just like 8 of us, and we would just play butts up with a tennis ball or card games or whatever, just away from everyone. And at some point we got told, hey, you're out of bounds. You can't be here. You got to go over here and be inbounds. There was all the kids, all the other high schoolers, and it scared the crap out of me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can be seen. They can see me. I don't want to be seen. And so in some ways it really was just a replaying of that story of like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be seen for somebody unique, someone special, someone that's got talent, someone who's done things. Like, oh my gosh, what if somebody wants something? It's like I can be stuff I can offer, and then if somebody wants something and I don't want to give it, I can say like, no, thank you. It's out of bounds. See, people told me I was out of bounds. Now I can tell other people you're out of bounds. So it's really been a good growth experience to like come out. In fact, it was kind of interesting. A few weeks ago at work, they were trying to name something, something product health, something, and they wanted to use the acronym Ph.D. And I was like, nope, that is not a good acronym. Like, can we still have some semblance of respect for, what is considered kind of the pinnacle of academic achievement? Can we still have a little specialness and not water it down by associating it with some piece of crap, ugly shit dashboard that fucking means nothing about nothing? And they like no one quite understood why, but they ended up naming it something else. So if they had called it the PhD, it really wouldn't have mattered. But what mattered was that I spoke out and I said my piece. And it felt good. It's like, hey, I got a PhD. This is not a PhD. I know what a real Doctor of Philosophy degree is all about. So let's see. So what else did I want to get to? So yeah, so it was, kind of really good experience going through developing this program, marketing it, telling people about it, and, really kind of getting to own, all of the accomplishments, all of my capabilities, all of my knowledge, especially in the area of tech jobs and helping people get jobs in that area and understand what they want. And I'm really excited to sort of share that. Yeah, it was also very helpful to realize that like, oh, I want to go beyond this. I want to go much more beyond just this, what I now consider sort of a small portion of human experience of, tech field jobs. Like there's so much more out there. Like it's just ridiculous, the scope of human experience and thought and consciousness and the types of tools that are out there for us to be able to get what we want. Because I know I've been working a lot on sort of, relationship with money, just from, it's like one of those, like on paper, I realize that I'm doing phenomenal. Yet there's just like this feeling of like, oh man, boy, a steak is how much? Like, I don't know. And that it's really, something that's been along with me. Doesn't really matter what my external circumstances is. It's internal thought processes that's been holding me back with really enjoying. And so it's been something I've been studying is, abundance mindset and abundant thinking, things like that. And I've just been loving sort of like also breath work, box breath, which is a technique the Navy SEALs do where it's a 4-count inhale, 4-count pause, 4-count exhale, 4-count pause, and repeat. So I think we're going to say that's the show. It's been great kind of getting back, catching up, getting into some fun nonsense and just sort of fucking around. Not really having to accomplish anything other than sort of having a little fun, sharing a little knowledge, breaking it down. Because, man, I'll be honest, last few podcasts, because I was like, oh, I got to be on message with what I'm trying to accomplish. And there was like some things like I wanted to talk about, but I'm like, oh, it's not really aligned with the program I'm trying to launch. And so that's kind of like a little bit of that rough feeling of, maybe there's something here where I'm not fully doing, not fully offering everything I should be offering if I feel like I got to hold back, right? So, learning experience, like I feel like, what is it they say? Great art is never finished. It's just abandoned. So I like to look at each of my podcast episodes as a work of art. They could always be improved, always betterfied, but, fuck it. We gotta, I like to release once a week so that, you can follow, that you are kind of up to date, that you're not like, what's Justin up to? Because I really want this to be, you, me getting together, you getting to know a little bit about my life and sharing some tools, because I really want to, give you a step up to join me. Which is the other thing I realized is like, oh man, I got to be so far ahead of my students. But it's like, I think I just want to be one step ahead and then help them get on my level. And ideally, I keep moving forward. So perhaps I'm always one step ahead, but I keep moving, they keep moving. Yet, hey, if I have a student and, I take one step and they take 2, 3, 4, 5, that's so much better for me and that student. And then they can help me. I got a new teacher now. So I'm not going to, worry about, hey, what happens if, someone outshines me. Like I'm looking forward to that because, we're all big, beautiful, shining stars in this universe here. I was just thinking of Boogie Nights. I think is the end of the movie in Boogie Nights, like Mark Wahlberg, that's like this scene that's famous for the prosthetic wiener that he pulls out, this big plastic slab of fake penis meat, and staring at it in the mirror, and he goes like, "You're a big, beautiful, shining star." So I don't know. I just thought of that. So we're all big, beautiful, shining stars, just like Mark Wahlberg and just like that prosthetic penis. So with that, take it easy and good day.